if you are questioning if you really do have something valuable to share, or am I just making this up? Can I really do this? Will this really work? All of those questions will usually come back to a core wound of questioning your value in some way. Usually that stems from there being some sort of unmet need or void that you didn't get met in childhood. Welcome to Reclaiming Consciousness. I'm Elise Bassine, trauma and breathwork expert and creator of the Metamorphosis Method, the only methodology bridging the gap between spiritual healing and clinical trauma work. For many years, our consciousness has been hijacked by societal and cultural programming, religion, the media, and familial and ancestral trauma. In this podcast, you'll discover my unique perspective on trauma healing and how it is the gateway to fully reclaiming your consciousness. You'll hear stories and teachings that expand your mind as you discover how every relationship challenge, business block, or limiting pattern is an invitation to reclaim the parts of your consciousness you unknowingly gave away. Get ready to go deep. Now let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show and happy 2026. I know this actually isn't my first episode of 2026, but it's the first episode I'm recording in 2026 because the first episode that came out this year with Robin, I had recorded in December. So this is really my first time plugging into the podcast this year. And I'm so excited for 2026. I feel like there's such a different energy. And I've been reading so much about the numerology, the astrology, the Chinese astrology. And this is the beginning of a new cycle. And I don't know about you, but I can feel it. It just feels super different. I feel like some of the themes that I have been seeing with my clients at the end of the year and with myself, just around more valuing of your individual needs, desires, ways you want to feel, ways that you want to relate, especially in your intimate partnerships. Like, how are you valuing yourself within your relationships and not putting other people's needs above your own or abandoning yourself to take care of everyone else, and just bringing this deeper level of awareness to that. That has been really a big theme that's coming up for everybody as I'm observing. And the other thing I've been observing that is really interesting is everybody that I talk to has been having these really profound prophetic dreams. And I don't know if it's because we're at the end of this Pisces cycle with Neptune and Saturn moving out of Pisces and into Aries, which is happening like momentarily. But the way that clients have been coming to me with their dreams and how they are so deeply connected to their process and like giving them information about directions they need to go or things they need to focus on, it's really, really interesting. And I feel like a lot of people have been processing a lot of stuff in their dreams. Anyway, just a few things I'm noticing. And then the other thing that is really exciting is I am focusing a lot of my energy this year on building my YouTube channel and sharing a lot more over there. So today's episode is kind of a ode to the new YouTube channel, because what I'm going to be focusing on over there is giving the experience of what it's like to work with me privately or work with me one-on-one. And working with me one-on-one is something you get in pretty much any of the containers, because even if you're in a group container with me, you still get individualized support and attention throughout. The purpose of the YouTube channel is to go deep into some of the topics that come up regularly for all of my clients and giving you tools and things that you can do right now in order to create a shift for yourself around these specific things. So today, I am going to share with you as if you were in a one-on-one session with me. And we're going to go really deep into the topic of do I have something of value to offer? So you feel called to start a business or go out on your own somehow and share your gifts, live your purpose, and do what you feel called to do. But what keeps coming up for you is this question of, do I really have something of value to share, right? So maybe you feel this pull to do your own thing, but then you kind of look around the internet and you're like, well, this person does that and this person does that. So why should I do that? Because people are already doing that. And then you start to question if you really should do it and if you really have something valuable to share, or are you, quote unquote, just like making this up? So this is something that comes up for a lot of people, and even people who already have a business. I've seen a lot of women who've started businesses over the last couple of years, but because of their own personal growth process, they are changing and they're different. And they're like, you know what? I actually want to evolve what it is that I do with clients, what it is that I share, what it is that I focus on in my business. But how do I do that? Or just kind of questioning if that's going to work because, they don't want to be leaving behind the thing that they were doing. And there can be a lot of fear in that of losing people or leaving money on the table or whatever it is. So I have some very key things that I'd like to share with you about this. So if this is you and you're in this specific situation, or even if you're not, I think these things are going to be very practical and valuable for you to focus on. The first thing around this, as always, when you come to me, we're going to first look at your core wound, right? And what I say to people all the time is whenever someone brings their challenge or their situation to me, I always say, well, there's always multiple layers going on here, right? Like there's a layer of how we just address this in more of a surface material human way. And then there's kind of some things going on maybe underneath of that. Maybe it is the implications of the other people in your life and, how your decisions impact them. And then there's always the deepest layer, which is your core wound. And when we address that deeper layer and when we can pinpoint the core wound and exactly how it's showing up and expressing itself through this quote unquote problem or challenge or block, and we address that, then usually all of the other layers will resolve themselves. So that's why it's always so important to look at the core wound first. So if you are questioning if you really do have something valuable to share, or am I just making this up? Can I really do this? Will this really work? All of those questions will usually come back to a core wound of questioning your value in some way, right? Questioning if you yourself are actually valuable. Are you enough? Are you good enough? Is there something wrong with you? Do you really have value in this world? And usually that stems from there being some sort of unmet need or void that you didn't get met in childhood. So as children, we have a need, a very deep need to be acknowledged, to feel seen, and for somebody, a caregiver, to reflect back to us that value, that specialness, that thing that you are that no one else is. And we have a need for someone to see that in us and to be able to tell us, this is what's so special about you. This is what I appreciate about you. This is what's so great about you. And a lot of times it's not that our parents or caregivers don't want to do that for us. It's just that they might not be capable because of their own trauma, their own suffering, and their own preoccupation with whatever they're dealing with in life. So they don't have the capacity or the availability to be present for us in that way. So then we're constantly trying to get that need met through maybe perfectionism or overworking or proving that we have something of value to share so that maybe that caregiver will acknowledge us or will tell us that we're good enough or that they see us finally. And a lot of people will unconsciously be going through life trying to get that need met through how they perform at work or in their relationships, where you might always be motivated by this energy of, well, if I can just prove that I'm good enough at this, or that I can succeed at this, if I can just prove that I have value, then I will get that acknowledgement and that feeling of being valuable that I've been craving forever, right? So a lot of times we don't realize that we are operating from the unconscious unmet need, and we're trying to get that need met. So then when it comes to starting a business, immediately you are confronted with this question of your value that started way before you can even remember, before you could even talk, right? You were trying to get this need met and didn't. And when you start a business, you have to make this claim to the universe that what you have to share is valuable. Just by the nature of business, the fact that someone is going to pay you for your services is an expression of you saying, I have value. So when you have to say, I have value, the part of you that doesn't think you have value immediately surfaces so that you can address it. And then it feels like a block. It feels like a thing that you need to question, or that may be true or real, that you actually don't have value, when really it's surfacing so that you can address it and reconcile it. And that's why looking at the core wound is so important in this specific scenario. I mean, it's important in every scenario, but it's very important here because it's an opportunity for healing. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for transformation. So we really want to be looking at what part of you is questioning your value, where that comes from, and then we take that through the inner child healing process. And if you don't know about that, you can learn more about that in the Core Wound Solution, my private podcast, or in the Mini Morphosis, which is my $33 digital offering, where you learn the inner child healing process, because that is crucial to being able to address the core wound so that you don't constantly get tripped up by this deeper feeling that you are not valuable. So it is really important here because, like I said, the business is going to constantly call you forward to express, claim, and own that you're valuable. And then the other piece here that I think is really important around this topic is the piece about trusting what you're being drawn to. So a lot of women will come to me and say, I really feel like I'm able to help people in this specific way. But then I question it and I think, am I just making this up? And this is such an important thing to remember, that you need to trust what you're being drawn to. Because I always make the joke of I'm not sitting here thinking that I should go build skyscrapers, because that's not what I'm meant to do in the world. So if you are being drawn to do something, it's for a reason. You're not being drawn to do things that aren't for you, like go build skyscrapers or drive a train or whatever the hell it is. You can trust that because you feel drawn to this, it's for a reason, and trust that and stop questioning it, because the more you question it, the more you're just going to stay stuck and continue to be in this loop of questioning and indecision and self-doubt, and you're not going to take action. So if you can just know that there's a reason you're being drawn to this, and to trust that and act on it and continue to follow the breadcrumbs, that's going to relieve you of so much overthinking and ruminating and being stuck in a loop. So that is another thing that's super important here. And then the other thing that is crucial if you want to have a business is you have to be able to take the time to develop your skills, the skills that you already have, and your unique process. And this is something that I do with all of my clients, whether or not they go through the certification or, they're in the mothership or whatever it is, or they work with me privately, is what is the skill set that you have? And then how can you take that and break it down into your unique process that you do with clients? And the way that I really encourage people to do that is through doing, a combination of doing and a combination of reflecting. So usually your skill set will be a combination of the skills that you've acquired over time based on your knowledge and experiences and the things you've already done. And then will also be kind of like your natural talents and abilities, like the things that you're just naturally good at. Like for me, it was a combination of my years of experience training as a breath worker and doing breath work with people, my years of experience working with traumatized children as a school counselor, and then also my natural ability to understand trauma. Like so much of the stuff that I teach is just like stuff that I came up with. But then, I'll see like Gabor Mate sharing the same thing. And I'm like, okay, I just knew that because that was just natural to me. But also I get these things validated by like other people who are experts in the field saying the same thing. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm onto something here, right? That's always going to be a combination of like your experience, the knowledge you've acquired, and just like your natural gifts and abilities. And then also you want to be able to reflect on like, well, how have I done what I've done? Like for me, I always look back on, okay, in the beginning of my business, I was able to move through the fear and the self-doubt and all of the questioning that comes up in the beginning pretty quickly. So then I like reflected on that and was like, well, how did I do that? And that's how I came up with the inner child healing process, because I looked back on like what I actually did for myself, and how I was able to move through that stuff. So all of those things will come together to inform your unique process. Like, what is it that you naturally figured out how to do that now you can break down and articulate and use with other people? And then the other piece of it too is like, do you need to learn a new skill set, right? Is there something that you feel like you need to know in order to move forward that will be important for you to know, right? And this one can be a little bit tricky because sometimes I see women get stuck in that loop of just like continuously thinking they need another certification or they need to learn one more thing before they start a business. But then I also see the opposite where people will start a business and there's actually skill sets that they need that they don't have, right? So I think it's really important to be honest with yourself about that. And it's not about getting a new skill set or not. It's really about like the energy you're moving from. So if you're moving from an energy of I'm not good enough and I just need to keep learning new things so that I finally feel good enough, that's not the vibe, because you're never going to feel good enough based on that, right? But it's also to be honest with yourself about like, do I have a skill set to work with clients? Do I have a skill set to hold a clean and clear space for people? Do I have the skill set to understand when I'm projecting or when my stuff is coming up versus just being present for the other person? Do I know how to put my stuff to the side? All of these things are skill sets that being honest about whether or not you have that or you need to develop that is super important, because when you have a business, you have to have a skill set that you can repeat and that you can rely on to create whatever the result is that you're promising for people. And that's really important. And you have to be able to articulate that and share that in a way that's clear enough that people know that you can solve their problem or you can help them get where they want to go, right? So that is a really important piece. And obviously, for me, one of the reasons why I've developed my certification in the way that I have is to give people that skill set of like, how do I become a really solid practitioner and how do I work with clients in a way that is super powerful, but also super productive, right? And how do I create this very safe and clean space for people? Because in my opinion, creating a safe space is super important because people don't open up, until they feel safe. But also having this level of neutrality as well, where you don't have any skin in the game, or you're not putting your biases or your advice into the situation. You're realizing when you might be looking at something through a bias of maybe something that happened to you before or something you grew up experiencing, and being able to put that to the side so you can let the other person go through their own process and figure out what's right for them without you putting your needs or biases or thoughts or beliefs into it. And that's not to say you shouldn't share some of those things or share stories or things that would be helpful for them in their own process, but it's about knowing the difference. And that is an incredibly good skill set to have. So anyway, I could go on and on about that, but I'm not going to right now. And then the other thing that's so important, that I tell this to all my certification clients, but honestly to everybody, is learning by doing, working with people. Because until you start working with clients, even if it's just practicing and, offering to do sessions with people in exchange for a testimonial or whatever it is, until you start doing that, it's all just conceptual. It's all just abstract. You really don't know what it is you're going to be able to do with people until you do it. Because being in that position of the practitioner, that's when you start to see what you're capable of. That's when you start to understand your unique process and develop it. And that's when you start to see, like, what are these unique qualities that I bring to the table that no one else does? What are things that I can see that no one else can see? What are the things that I can really go deep into and help people with that no one else does? Or what is the perspective I have that is unique and different? And the only way you learn that is by working with people. And this is something that I think is underrated or something, or under talked about, because and that's why in my certification too, I make everyone start doing their exchanges right away, because I like to throw you in the deep end and be like, no, even though you don't feel ready, like the minute you do this exchange and you see yourself as the practitioner, you grow by leaps and bounds. Because then instead of it becoming theoretical, you experience it, you embody it, and you see that you can do it, and you see yourself as that version of you. And then you start to develop it, you start to have confidence, and you really start to see what it is that you bring to the table. So that piece is super important, super important. Practice, do, work with people, do it as an exchange, do it as an experiment, or charge whatever it is you want, but like prioritize that. Because before you do that, it's all just an idea floating in the ether. And we want to take it from idea floating in the ether to an actual business, an actual thing that you're doing with people that is of value and that you can share about. And then the other thing that I think is super important, that I think for me in the beginning of my business was harder, right? And that is about relationships and being open to meeting new people, building new relationships, talking to people about what you're doing, and just being open to connection in general. And I think that this is something that a lot of people don't realize is a sticking point for them, because being open to bringing in new clients and more people in general, it brings up fear for a lot of people. And the reason why is because, bringing it back to the core wound, whatever your blueprint is for relationships. So say, you grew up in a house where you were constantly being criticized, then any new relationship to your inner child is an opportunity to be criticized, and it doesn't feel safe. And your inner child is going to be bracing for criticism, and your inner child is going to be, no, danger ahead. If we keep opening up to new people, it's just more opportunities to be criticized. It's more opportunities to be hurt or rejected. And we need to prevent that from happening. So you will feel like it doesn't feel comfortable for you to open up to new relationships, or maybe you say you want to, but then you put the brakes on, or you do a little and then you hide, or you retreat, or whatever. But the more that you can address the fears that you have around bringing more people into your world and being open to new relationships, the quicker you're going to start to grow your business and start to value yourself and what it is you have to offer, because you're going to be able to see yourself as a reflection in so many different connections and so many different relationships. And you never know where any relationship is going to lead. And I think being open to that is really important, but also not having an agenda with every relationship either of like, okay, I'm going to connect with this person because I'm going to get a client out of it. That might not be what you get out of it, but it doesn't mean you're not going to get anything out of it, but also you don't want to go into it wanting to get anything out of it. Go into it with just an open mind of, I want to connect with people. I want to share about what I'm doing. I want to be authentic and I want to connect. And then there's like fruit in that, right? That yields something. You might not be able to predict what it is, but eventually, energetically, it spreads and you have a wider circle. You build a larger audience. You have more connections. And that ultimately is what will help you to grow your business. And it's a wider group of people for you to show up expressing your value in front of. And that gives you the opportunity to really sink into your own value and really express that and be seen in that. And then also address what comes up when that happens, because there's going to be the emotions that come up, the discomfort that comes up, and that's where the work comes in. Because if you don't have the tools to address those things when they come up, it can feel like a complete stopping point or a complete roadblock where you're just like, I don't know if I can do this. But it's not a question of whether you can do it. It's a question of knowing how to navigate these things as they come up so that you can continue moving forward. And that's, of course, what the inner child healing process is for, what the metamorphosis is for, and all of those things. So that is something that definitely needs to be addressed. However, if you can really go deep into all these things I shared about like trusting what you're being drawn to, developing your skills in your process, figuring out if you need to learn a new skill set or just leverage the ones that you have, and then working with people and learning by doing, and then also talking to people, meeting people, networking, all of those things, then you're going to start to move through this. So I would focus on those things first. And if you want to learn more about your core wound and understanding how to address that, you can reach out to me. However, these things are a great way to start. And then the last piece that I'll leave you with is a journaling prompt and some breath work to do. So in order to kind of move past this question of your own value, I would start with a journaling prompt of, when I was growing up, what did I need from my parents in order to feel valuable? And then just like stream of consciousness, right? And just see what comes up, because that's going to give you a lot of information around your core wound and some of the deeper emotions, beliefs, and experiences that need to be processed and released so that you can start to dissolve it. And then you can start to relate to the question of your value, or you just feel valuable. You start to relate to that much differently, and it becomes a lot easier to move forward. And then if you go to my YouTube channel, there are some breathwork sessions there that you can do to connect with your power and connect with your higher self, which is really going to help you connect in with your truth, your purpose, and the value that you have to offer the world. So please do those things. And then I'd love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I'm going to be sharing a lot more practical things like this over there around topics that come up for everybody, around like bringing in new clients and procrastination and lack of motivation and what's really behind those things and how to shift them. So don't forget to go over there and subscribe. Let me know how this landed for you, how the journaling was. I'd love to hear from you. Have an amazing weekend. I'm sending you guys lots of love, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to follow the show on Apple or Spotify, leave a review, and share the show with your friends who you know are yearning for this type of content. When you leave a review, send us a screenshot and we'll send you a $250 credit that you can apply to joining anything new in my world. You can stay connected with me by following me on Instagram at Elise_breathes. Make sure you download my clear trauma cheat sheet at EliseBreathes.com. See you next time.